267 years ago, the first company of Thai Buddhist monastic emissaries, led by the monk named Upali, set out for Sri Lanka with a mission to restore Buddhism to its glory. That mission was an important chapter in the history of Buddhism and has since been in the memories of both Thais and Sri Lankans. In 2018, another delegation of Thai Buddhist monks returned to Sri Lanka, this time with a different mission. In March 2018, a delegation of 50 Thai Buddhist monks set out on a missionary journey from Thailand. Their objective was to reintroduce Siam Nikaya ascetic practices to Sri Lanka. In his days, Buddha led tens of thousands of monks on an ascetic pilgrimage walk from town to town in order to disseminate Buddhism. For the 2018 pilgrimage, the destination of the Thai Buddhist monks' ascetic journey was Sri Lanka. Their purpose was to disseminate the Siam Nikaya ascetic practices and to tighten the time-honoured bond between the Siam Nikaya and Maha Nikaya orders of Buddhism. A monk's principal duty is to disseminate Buddhism. However, throughout the ages and with changes in social conditions and value systems, certain monastic practices have changed from the way they were in Buddha's day. This ascetic walk by Thai Buddhist monks in Sri Lanka is aimed at reintroducing and repropagating monastic practices among Sri Lankan Buddhists, long absent from the country. In the city of Anuradhapura, the monastic emissaries commenced their important mission with a morning prayer at Tuparam Stupa. Tuparam was the first stupa built in Sri Lanka more than 2,300 years ago. King Thera Numpia Dissa, with his strong faith in Buddhism, built Tuparam Vihara and Stupa. In the stupa, he enshrined Buddha's right collarbone relic, which he obtained from India. And it was here, at Tuparam Stupa, that the fourth Tripitaka revision took place, for the first time in Sri Lanka. The fourth revision of the Tripitaka took place in the year 238 of the Buddhist era, led by Mahinta Thera, with King Thera Numpia Dissa as the arch-patron. The revision took 10 months to complete. Tuparam underwent renovations through different periods of time. Amongst its remains are ancient stone pillars that have leaned over the centuries. However, the White Pagoda was rebuilt in 2405 BE, or more than 100 years ago. It is here, in Anuradhapura, once a prosperous capital city and currently one of Sri Lanka's spiritually unifying sites, that the Thai monks are marching along, chanting their prayers. This is the great Bodhi tree, which grew from a seedling from the city of Putakaya. This Bodhi tree, whose life goes back more than 2,000 years, is highly revered and worshipped by the Sri Lankans as a representative of Lord Buddha. A short distance from the great Bodhi tree stands a huge, imposing pagoda. This is Suwana Malika Pagoda, or Luwanwe Lisia. The tradition of paying respect to a pagoda by covering it with cloth dates back to the time of Buddha. Listening to Buddha's sermons with deep appreciation of his graciousness, the faithful responded by offering what they could afford. On this occasion, both Thai and Sri Lankan faithful Buddhists have made a humble offering of pagoda-covered cloths in worship of Lord Buddha. Sri Lankans witnessing this ceremony delightfully say prayers to bless this charitable act. The largest pagoda in Sri Lanka, Suwana Malika Pagoda, or Luwanwe Lisia, enshrines a relic of Lord Buddha. The pagoda is surrounded by sculptures whose features resemble those encircling the Changlong Temple of the ancient city of Sri Sachanalai and the Changlong Temple in Gampangpet City in Thailand. Such a similarity in Buddhist art portrays the religious bond shared by the two nations. Every day, Thai monks walk more than 10 kilometres through villages and communities to important Buddhist sites. This is Mahintale, the origins of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. This stupa, called Thera, is believed to be the very place where the monk named Thera, a son of King Asoka, began disseminating Buddhism, which was of Indian origin in Sri Lanka in 236 BE. It was also here that Mahinta met Thera Numpiatissa, King of Lanka. On that occasion, King Thera Numpiatissa asked how Buddhism could be firmly established in Sri Lanka. Mahinta Thera replied that although the religion had taken root, it would still not be firmly established until their fellow countrymen's descendants became ordained as monks, studied the monastic discipline, and performed canonically correct monastic practices. Could this have been another reason why generation after generation of Sri Lankans have firmly inherited their faith in Buddhism? Not far from Umpasatala Stupa is the rock of Aratana. It is said that before delivering a sermon for the king of Lanka and his descendants, Mahinta Thera advised Sumon, an Arhat novice, to proclaim this event to the heavenly angels so that they would gather on this rock and listen to the sermon. From Aratana, the pilgrims wind through the trees into the forest, where there is a little cave. This is Mahintu Cave, where Mahinta Thera once stayed and meditated in seclusion. Wherever their ascetic ambulation leads, their monastic practices remain unchanged. Today's Vesper begins in a quiet, simple manner at the pond of black water. This pond is part of Mahintale, an ancient site highly revered by Sri Lankans. The next morning, the Thai monks begin the next phase of their pilgrimage, from Mahintale to Bolona Rua Township. Knowing in advance that a delegation of Thai Buddhist monks will pass through their villages, the Sri Lankan locals express an endless outpouring of faith to the visitors. This is an expression of high reverence by Sri Lankan Buddhists, the washing of the marching monks' feet with clean water. During each day's ascetic march, they focus their every monastic practice on modesty, simplicity, and freedom from the senses of taste, smell, and sound. This is the Siam rigorous discipline as required of ascetic monks. The monks have a simple lunch during a short stop near the edge of the forest. However, word of mouth has spread the news of their march. Inspired by faith, a large number of Sri Lankan Buddhists are making heartfelt offerings of food and water to serve the monks, who have been on their ascetic walk for many kilometres. Since King Asoka's reign, when the 9 Buddhist missionaries set out to disseminate the faith in many countries, including Sri Lanka and the Indo-Chinese peninsula, what has contributed to the firm establishment of Buddhism? Such impressive sights can be admired throughout their journey. Villagers pour clean water on the road surface, hoping to quell the heat as the monks walk along. They also offer food and drinking water that they could find. It is their rock-solid faith in Buddhism that inspires them to do this. Despite their poverty, their hearts are filled with charity. Saying a prayer in worship of the monks walking by is indeed a wholehearted act of charity. The sight of numerous faithful Sri Lankan Buddhists approaching the monks en masse and showing the highest respect is something the Thai monks have never seen before. Several of them cannot hold their tears of joy. Bolo Narua, their next destination, is too far for a day's walk. So before sunset, the monks prepare a place to spend the night. A clod, a long-handled umbrella with a hanging insect screen, was a special necessity for ascetic monks on a long walk in former times. The tradition of staying under such an umbrella is a scheme to eliminate attachment and reduce moral defilements. As it is said, no suffering under this umbrella. This morning, local people in nearby neighbourhoods, upon knowing about the arrival of the Thai monks, have prepared food to offer them. For some, this is their first opportunity. Offering food to monks, giving alms, is a custom that long disappeared from Sri Lankan society. The arrival of this company of Thai monks has given the Sri Lankans a chance to re-experience this ancient custom. Throughout the period of 1 month, the Thai monks have to travel mostly on foot, making pilgrimages to different towns and important sites. However, before arriving in Sri Lanka, these monks had to pass courses on ascetic monks' practices and Buddhist disciplinary codes. They also earnestly practice asceticism in Thailand.
ถ้าเราย้อนหลังไปถึงสมัยอดีตเนี่ยก็เป็นเรื่องปกติที่พระต้องบิณฑบาตอยู่แล้วแต่เนื่องจากว่าระยะเวลาประมาณสักเกือบ500 ปีที่ศรีลังกาตกเป็นเมืองขึ้นของโปรตุเกสฮอลันดาอังกฤษเนี่ยปรากฏว่าพระคุณเจ้ามันขาดหายไปฉะนั้นประเพณีช่วงแบบนี้มันก็ไม่มีแม้จะมีระยะสั้นเช่นท่านสรณังกรเข้ามาบูรณะขึ้นมาใหม่สมัยประมาณ260 ปีก็ไม่ประสบความสำเร็จภาพเดิมๆที่พระคุณเจ้าอยู่ประจำวัดก็ยังเป็นอย่างนั้นอยู่ประการที่2นี่เป็นเรื่องเล่าชาวศรีลังกาเขามองว่าเนื่องจากสมัยอังกฤษปกครองเนี่ยพวกบาทหลวงเขาโจมตีพระดังนั้นเมื่อเห็นพระคุณเจ้าเดินบิณฑบาตเนี่ยก็ประณามว่าเป็นขอทานทีนี้ญาติโยมก็เลยตกลงทำสัญญากันว่างั้นพระคุณเจ้าก็ไม่ต้องบิณฑบาตหรอกเดี๋ยวญาติโยมเอาข้าวไปถวายที่วัดอันนี้ก็เป็นเรื่องเล่ากันแต่ถ้ามองในแง่ของประวัติศาสตร์ก็คือมันน่าจะขาดหายไปประมาณ500 ปีที่ ชาติยุโรปเข้ามาปกครองศรีลังกา
Today's ambulation is welcomed with an outpouring of affection and friendship from the hearts of the faithful to the Siam founder. Villagers from nearby neighbourhoods have come out to greet and worship the monks with flowers and herbs. After several days on this journey, and due to the different climate and environment, some of the monks have become ill. The news of the monks' knee and foot injuries has spread, causing today's welcoming atmosphere to be different from that on previous days. Villagers have prepared some herbs to treat the monks' injuries. Regardless of their status, careers and levels of faith, their expression is the same. That night, the monks sleep under their umbrellas in the army barracks. Villagers and military officers alike busy themselves welcoming the monks. They also bring the best herbs they can find to treat the ill and injured monks, who have been walking for many days. In many places through which the monks' procession has passed, they are invited to take a rest, with meals and drinking water provided. The chanting of prayers by Sri Lankan Buddhists from all walks of life is heard along the way. How important is the Itipiso chant or recollection of the Triple Gem? Why is it chanted by most Sri Lankans regardless of their ages and genders?
มองว่าเป็นเรื่องปกติของศรีลังกาเขาถามว่าทำไมเด็กศรีลังกาทำไมผู้ใหญ่ศรีลังกาเขาสวดได้ประการที่หนึ่งก็คือศรีลังกาเขาจะมีโรงเรียนพุทธศาสนาวันอาทิตย์แต่นี้เมื่อเป็นโรงเรียนเนี่ยเด็กนักเรียนก็ต้องเข้าเรียนในขณะวัยเป็นเด็กเนี่ยพระคุณเจ้าจะสอนเรื่องสวดมนต์บทพวกนี้เขาก็จะสอนให้เป็นเรื่องปกติประการที่หนึ่งประการที่สองกิจกรรมที่บ้านพ่อแม่ก็จะพาสวดมนต์เย็นทุกวันเด็กก็จะสวดได้โดยปกติประการที่สามวันไหนว่างถ้าเข้าวัดพ่อแม่พาลูกหลานเข้าวัดเขาก็จะพาลูกสวดบทนี้อันนี้ก็ถือเป็นเรื่องปกติที่เขาต้องสวดได้ประการต่อมาก็คือคนศรีลังกาเขามองว่าการสวดพระปริตรหรือสวดมนต์เนี่ยมันเป็นการเสริมชีวิตเขาเป็นการปัดเป่าสิ่งชั่วร้ายแล้วคาถาอิติปิโสเนี่ยก็เป็นหนึ่งใน3คาถาสำคัญที่เขาสวดประจำทุกวันนะฉะนั้นก็ถือว่าเป็นเรื่องปกติและที่สำคัญคือคนศรีลังกาเขาจะนำเอาคาถาอิติปิโสเนี่ยเข้าไปเป็นบทที่เป็นมงคลงานขึ้นบ้านใหม่งานแต่งงานเปิดสำนักงานก็จะมีเด็กผู้หญิงไปช่วยสวดให้ถือว่าเป็นสิริมงคลของแต่ละที่แต่ละแห่งก็ถือว่าเป็นเรื่องปกติที่เขาต้องสวดกันอยู่แล้ว
After walking for more than 10 kilometres, the monks have finally arrived in the township of Bolo Naurua, a former capital city once well known for its prosperity in both architecture and Buddhism. This is Gala Vihara, a huge Buddha statue that has existed for almost a millennium. The monks have performed a worship ceremony here, chanting a prayer and offering some lotus before the symbol of Buddha. Buddha's footprints are regarded by Buddhists as worthy of very high respect, and they are another symbol of the founder. This is also true of Sri Lanka. According to an ancient scripture, Buddha came to visit the island of Lanka and left a footprint on a mountaintop, which is known today as Mount Sipata, or Adam's Peak. Tonight, the monks have to climb up hundreds of steps to reach the top of the mountain before sunrise. It is in this small mountaintop pagoda that Buddha's footprint is enshrined. The next morning, the monks begin their dawn prayer on top of Mount Sipata. The area around the pagoda is not spacious, so it is crowded by worshippers. By contrast, the interior of the pagoda is calm and tranquil, thanks to the prayers being chanted in worship of Buddha. This atmosphere resembles worshipping in the close personal presence of Lord Buddha. Colombo, the current capital city of Sri Lanka, is another important destination during this visit. Niyaram Temple is one of the most important temples in Sri Lanka. According to ancient records, Buddha paid a visit to this temple. This is quite an unusual event. When Sri Lankan Buddhists have learned the news of the arrival of the monks from Thailand, they gather together, lay some cloths on the ground, and sprinkle flowers along the way. Each person offers what they can afford to worship and bless these pilgrims. The Thai monks' visit to Colombo has also opened a new chapter in Sri Lanka's history. The head of Amarapura Nikaya, or Maha Temple, has organised a welcoming ceremony for the Thai Theravada monks. Different orders have different practices, but under the Siam overarching Kasaya shelter, all orders are united, bound together as one, and the Siam entity devoted to preserving and disseminating Buddhism. Having arrived in Kandy, the Thai monks will stay at a temple that is a branch of Maha Temple during their religious mission. And their march through a Muslim community today marks a new chapter in the history of the Buddhist pilgrimage. Every religion teaches and guides its followers to be moral people. If everybody upholds their religion's teachings and peace, harmony and happiness will prevail in society. During the walk through this Muslim community, with a mosque at the centre, the pilgrims experience an outpouring of unconditional compassion and friendship from members of a different religion, like a refreshing drink of nectar for a parched soul. Along with spiritual blessedness, interfaith friendship is prospering too. Finally, this group of pilgrims has arrived at Uppalai Temple, a historic site with a history of more than 200 years. Although Buddhism grew and prospered in Sri Lanka, it also went through a lot of problems and obstacles. In the past, Sri Lanka was ravaged by both internal and external wars. Then, foreign influence and religion also dominated Sri Lankan administration on several occasions, and this continued for centuries. An absence of royal patronage for Buddhism ensued, which weakened the Sangha institution and led to the destruction of temples and religious sites. Sri Lanka went through a very miserable period, and during this time, not even one monk remained in the country. There was only one Buddhist novice by the name of Sara Nankan. Despite only being a novice, he committed himself to studying Buddhist Dharma until he became well-learned and able to write doctrinal books. Plus, he strictly obeyed the Buddhist precepts. Sara Nankan's principal attempt to restore Buddhism was based on the belief that Sri Lanka could not preserve Buddhism if there were no monks. Why did the absence of monks stand in the way of Buddhism restoration? Of the four types of Buddha's followers, monks play the most important role. This is because Buddha appointed them to perform all the monastic practices and religious rites. Monastic disciplinary adulation can only be reached by the majority of monks in session. Sara Nankan's devotion won the support of the king, who commissioned a delegation of envoys to Siam for the purpose of inviting Thai monks to Sri Lanka to perform ordination ceremonies. This happened during the reign of King Makot of Ayutthaya. Finally, in 2295 BE, the monk Upali led a team of 17 Thai monks on a 5-month journey to Sri Lanka, battling storms and rough seas along the way. During his time in Sri Lanka, the monk Upali devoted himself to disseminating Buddhism. He ordained as many as 700 Sri Lankans as monks and 3,000 others as novices. He played an essential part in reinstating Buddhism in the land of Sri Lanka. He also restored a number of auspicious customs, such as the requirement for monks to remain at their temples during the 3-month Lent. Most importantly, he successfully restored the ceremonial procession to celebrate the relic of the tooth of Buddha, and this ceremony has become an important Sri Lankan tradition today. Every August, Sri Lanka sees a great tradition celebrated in the city of Kandy. This is the celebration of the relic of the tooth of Buddha, one of his canine teeth, a precious relic that has coexisted with Sri Lanka for over 1,700 years. Inspired by their solid faith, Buddhists from all corners of the country gather here in celebration of this auspicious tradition. They regard their worship of the relic of the tooth of Buddha as the act of worshipping a representative of Buddha. For this reason, the celebration of the relic of the tooth of Buddha bears incomparable spiritual significance to Sri Lankan Buddhists. Originally, a company of monks from Siam received the Sri Lankan monastic order of Buddhism and established it in Siam centuries ago. Then another company of Thai monastic emissaries restored Theravada Buddhism, also called Siam Nikaya to Sri Lanka. Currently, Sri Lanka has 3 orders of Buddhism. One is the Siam Nikaya, which is divided into 6 sub-orders, chief amongst them which are Karmawasi, emphasizing dissemination, and the Aranyawasi, emphasizing monasticism. The other 2 are the Amarapura Nikaya, which originated in Myanmar, and the Mon Nikaya, which was introduced by Mon Buddhists. The Siam Nikaya has 2 patriarchs, one for the Karmawasi and the other for the Aranyawasi. On this pilgrimage, the monks from Thailand have a chance to meet the patriarchs of the different orders. This is a great opportunity to strengthen the relationship that has continued for over 200 years. When the monk Upali died, the King of Sri Lanka organised a ceremonial cremation to honour him at the Royal Crematorium in the city of Kandy. This explains the very close relationship and connection between Sri Lankan and Thai Buddhism, which has inspired Buddhist study exchange programs over the years. Furthermore, a large number of Thais visit Sri Lanka for the purposes of vacation and meditation. The city of Kandy is Sri Lanka's centre of Buddhism. This city is regarded to have been the origin of the restoration of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Dhammayatra Temple, known among the Thais as the Temple of the Relic of the Tooth of Buddha, once served as a sanctum for the ordination of 3,000 young Sri Lankans by the Siamese monastic emissaries as part of their mission to restore Buddhism to this land. Inside this temple is a reliquary containing Buddha's relic tooth, one of his 4 relic teeth as recorded in his biography. Sri Lankan Buddhists have a strong determination to visit this temple to pay respect to the relic of the tooth of Buddha at least once in their lifetime. Today, Buddhism has been firmly established in Sri Lanka, and its prosperity is attributed to the steadfast faith firmly rooted in every Sri Lankan Buddhist soul. Every member of the delegation has experienced the power of faith throughout the length of their journey and pilgrimage on this land.
เป็นภาพที่ประทับใจนะ
For over a month, this company of Thai monks has undertaken their ascetic walk to disseminate true Theravada monastic practices to Buddhist Sri Lankans. The monks' visit, albeit short, has imbued Sri Lankans with a blissfulness and exuberance that they have never experienced in their lives. The long-time relationship, friendship, unity, harmony, and mutuality that binds Sri Lankan and Thai Buddhists together will continue to grow as a spiritually unifying force and sustainable principle of living.